France should win this, shouldn't they?
They should, but they would have to prove it. I mean, the group is tough. I think you have to respect all the other teams. And if you are superior, better than them, you would have to prove it. And the margin is very thin. What we see during friendly games brings some infos about how the teams are doing right now, but it's going to be completely different. I mean, the first day of the first game of the tournament, the atmosphere will shift to something else, and it's how it makes the difference between, you know, teams who are not that experienced, that maybe some other team like France or maybe the Netherlands as well. So it's going to be tricky. They will have to play very good, and especially the first two games, to maybe give some break to the first 11 and give some games to the substitute and rest the others for the last 16. So yeah, France should win, but again, when I see, you know, the Netherlands beating Iceland, which just beat England, yeah, if you consider that, you would say that's going to be very tough. But the tournament will be different. So let's see how it works on the first game and see games after games.
I imagine, Frank, expectation in France is that they're not only going to win this group, but the whole tournament.
Yes, it is. With all respect to the others, because you know that England can win, that Portugal can win, maybe the Netherlands can win, and of course, I forgot Germany playing at home. But yeah, the expectation is high, and everybody would love to see France winning, especially after the last European Championship, where they been kicked out on the quarterfinal against the Switzerland. So we want a revenge. We want something better. We at least want a final, and if we want to have a final, we want to win.
You look at it on paper, this team is pretty much head and shoulders above everyone else, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've been doing previews of the Euros and the groups and the teams that should be the favorites. And for all the teams that we have talked about, yeah, you see the reasons as to why they could win it, but you also see the reasons as to why maybe they're going to come up short. With France, you really have to dig for reasons as to why they're not going to win it.
Yeah.
It's far easier to come up with all sorts of reasons and arguments as to why they should be the team that are the favorites, that they should win this competition. They have strength in every line. They are a very strong team in the back line. Perhaps if I were to point out an area where maybe they come up a little short, and at this point, I'm being picky. Maybe in the midfield, maybe that's an area that perhaps you can take advantage of France, but that's really not quite the case, because if it is Camavinga and if it is Kante, then, and you imagine that Antoine Griezmann is going to drop in a little deeper as well, then look, honestly, line by line, France is stronger than everybody else in this competition. And so, if they play to the highest level possible, if they play to their very best, France should win the Euros. Anything other than that, I think, should be considered a failure.
What's interesting, Frank, when you take a look at that graphic, is that we have waxed lyrical about Saliba over the last couple of years. For Arsenal, he's been exceptional, arguably one of the best defenders in the Premier League. And at the opposite, over the last year, we've done nothing but criticise Upamecano and his performances for Bayern Munich. Why does Didier Deschamps see it different pretty much to everyone else?
I would love to have the answer, because I'm like you, I'm a big fan of Saliba, and I recognize, like you, that, according to what we saw throughout the season, Saliba has been tremendous all season long, comparing to Upamecano that struggle at some point. And yes, it's a question mark. Saliba tried to answer, saying that he's not at his best. He doesn't consider him as one of the best defender in England, but he's ready to fight and get maybe a position under Deschamps. I think a position that he deserves. But we are not with Didier Deschamps. Maybe, there is a difference between belonging to one of the best clubs in the world and being an international player. At some time, it happened to me, where I was feeling a little bit shaky playing for my country. So you feel more comfortable, more secure playing with your club. And when suddenly you have to play for your country, it's a little bit harder. And it's hard to get that bigger level and give the best. So I didn't see Saliba at his best, but for me, it's enough to consider that he should be in the first 11. And I just want to say something about France. As every time France has been the favorites of a competition, it's mostly has been a disaster. So it's why we are, won't say humble, because for French people it doesn't exist, but we are a bit concerned, let's say, and let's see how it works.
Mario, you're agreeing there with Frank, what he was saying about Saliba?
Yeah, because look, he came out also. What he said was really crucial for me. When he came out, he said, if a coach talks to me or talks about me, and I think all the guys who were on the show and we're talking about it, but we hate it when coaches leave us out or have a go at us or tell us certain things. But if he doesn't say anything to us, that's when the real problem comes. So he made that comment and he said, at least he's talking to me. And I understand that he wasn't always happy with him. But hey, in England, he did great. But what Frank said, the shirt of your nation is a different feeling, guys. When you put that on, and I think the players only play well when you don't care. You don't watch the jersey, but you just watch about, I want to win. When you have that confidence in you, then you play a great game for your nation. But when you start thinking about it, that's when real pressure comes on, and then you don't perform as well as you want.
Did the Scotland shirt have a different weight to Liverpool?
Yeah, a lot heavier. Do you know, I was thinking, when I was listening to Ali, I was agreeing with him that you're actually trying to find reasons that France will fail. Well, I think we've just kind of hit on one. Is it going to be Deschamps? Is he going to be the reason?
Right.
Because, as we've all said, there's not one of us who would play a Upamecano before Saliba.
As a coach, are you just going with someone that you know can perform at this international level, and you don't want to roll the dice?
It's stubbornness. There has to be some sort of stubbornness in a coach where you're picking a player who has not on the field of play proven that he should be there. But you have something in your head that makes you think, and you can convince yourself of things. You know, maybe he thinks that he's a good foil for Konate. Maybe he thinks that Upamecano makes Konate better. And if I make Konate the greatest player in the world, then he's going to take care of any deficiencies that Upamecano might have. I mean, so again, that would be another reason why they might not win it. Maybe the manager. And I'm not talking about just one position. You know, maybe there's a player who, maybe Griezmann's having a shocker all the way through, but just, I can't drop him. I'm not going to drop him. And you end up getting knocked out because he doesn't contribute. So, again, the manager absolutely 100% can be the reason why you don't get through as well, not just the players.
Is there any concern about N'Golo Kante, obviously coming over from Saudi Arabia, Frank, that he might not be up to speed?
No, I mean, he's the exception to the rule. I will be against every other player playing for Qatar or Saudi Arabia. But him, I mean, he's N'Golo Kante. I mean, the guy is magical. He's crazy. He's in very good shape. He's ready for it. I barely saw the game because we had the election and no TV wanted to show the game. But I saw in the streaming. Yeah, that was crazy. The first time that we couldn't see France playing even a friendly game, but because of the European elections. But I managed to saw most of the game, and N'Golo Kante was everywhere, like at his prime. And I believe that he's ready. So how he's going to handle it? And Tchouaméni is also almost ready to come back. So it's up to Deschamps. You know, we have to trust Didier. I mean, how many times Giroud has been criticized of not being, you know, or shouldn't have been in the squad, and he's been there and he scored goals, and at the end Deschamps was right. So I want to believe that he's still right. I want to believe it's for France. And it would be sad for Saliba, but it is what it is. He's every day with the players, so he knows more than us how it works. Will he be right? You know, I mean, the conclusion will say it all, and we'll see at the end of the tournament where France ended up, and we'll judge him.
with the US men's national team, of course, continuing to lick their wounds after that 5-1 thrashing at the hands of Colombia. You take a look. The record under Greg Berhalter, it's not impressive, is it? 6 wins in 18 games against the top 20 world ranking. 4 of those victories against Mexico, so that doesn't really count, does it? The other wins against Iran and Morocco. It's the worst US men's national team loss since 2016, when it was 4-0 against Costa Rica. Seb and Herka with us, who are in North Carolina, of course, ahead of the finals of the TST. Boys, obviously, everyone blames Greg Berhalter, and he's not absolved of any sort of blame. But isn't it just the fact that there's this rhetoric that if we get a proper coaching around these amazing players, that they will shine, that they'll be brilliant? But isn't the fact of the matter is, these aren't amazing players. These are mediocre players at best, the majority of them. So why are we surprised when they serve up mediocrity?
Interesting historical reference you bring up there, Dan. The last big defeat like this, that 4-0 against Costa Rica. The manager was fired immediately after that, so there's some historical precedence for the pressure that's on Greg Berhalter now.
World Cup qualifier.
We were talking about this earlier over breakfast. Where did you see the weaknesses against Colombia? Was it more players not being good enough to compete with the Colombians, or fall to the plan?
Listen, I don't want to talk about the weaknesses. I want to talk about this squad in general not being very good. It's that simple,
I'm asking him
isn't
if
it?
it's the weaknesses of the players or if it's the manager, Dan. All right, so tell us. Why don't you tell Dan what he wants to hear, that the American players aren't good? Go ahead.
I don't want to hear that. I just want to hear, overall, what's going on. Why is there such high expectations around this team when these players can't even get into their teams domestically?
Yeah, because it's not the first time these players couldn't get into their teams domestically.
Yeah, Christian Pulisic definitely not a starter for AC Milan.
Yeah, well, and also
Weston McKennie definitely not a starter for Juventus.
if you go through the history. Oh, you two can get a coffee later on. Let me get through this, okay? If you go through the pool of these players, you've never had a talented player pool like this. And lesser teams on paper of the U.S. men's national team of the past have done greater things, have been more than the equal sum of their parts. They've actually been a team, and I think that's the frustration with a lot of fans, pundits, is when you see these players, the Christian Pulisic, who will arguably go down as one of, if not the best U.S. men's national team players ever, a Weston McKennie, a Tyler Adams, these type of players that are playing in big leagues, big teams. It feels like you're letting these players go to waste. Why can't Greg Berhalter, why can't the Federation get the most out of these players? Because Jurgen Klinsmann did so, because Bob Bradley did so, because Bruce Arena did so. And what I mean by did so is punching above their weight. When have we seen this U.S. men's national team punch above their weight? I think that's the displeasure amongst fans and pundits.
Yeah, look, Dan, if you want to say that the U.S. isn't as good and their players aren't as good as the elite, I think that's a totally fine assessment. That's reasonable. That's normal. There's not American fans that would fight you on that. The question here is, one, is Colombia elite, and are they 5 goals on you elite? That's the reaction here that we're seeing from U.S. fans, the frustration with Greg Berhalter. This U.S. team may not be as good as Colombia, but they're not 5-1 at home worse than Colombia, Dan, and that's where you're seeing the upset reaction from the fans.
Am I barking down the wrong tree?
Well, with this guy's, yeah. Look, I'll go back to the game against Jamaica a few months back, where it was essentially the B-C squad for Jamaica. They had all sorts of injuries, and they were outplayed, the United States were, by that Jamaican team, and we're fortunate to win that game because at the end it was a known goal, a deflection that actually allowed this game to go into extra time, and eventually the United States won the match. And all of that was sort of put aside because they went on to beat what Seb would know and admit is a very struggling right now Mexican national team. And so it was like, well, it's all good. We forget about what happened against Jamaica. Well, the truth is that same mistakes that you saw in that Jamaica game, you saw in this Colombia game against a better team than Jamaica. And guess what happens? You make the same mistakes against better players, against a better team, and you get destroyed. Both the manager for the stubbornness of continuing to play this way, and then you also get, I think it's right to question the quality of the players to try to play this way, to not make adjustments on the field and adjustments on the run and say, look, listen, we can't be doing this. We can't continue to make these mistakes and think that we're going to get away with it against a team of the quality of Colombia, who, by the way, as good as they have been in World Cup qualifiers, Colombia is a good team, not a great team. The United States made Colombia look as if they were 1970 Brazil, as if they were 1988 Netherlands, as if they were the top of the top. Colombia's up and coming. They have been good in World Cup qualifiers, but they haven't been this good, or certainly as good as the United States made them look.
Can we just see the starting 11 again, who played against Colombia? You take a look at it, Stevie. You've got Matt Turner, who's not playing, who got dropped. Tim Ream got dropped at Fulham. You've got players who just are not fulfilling their potential domestically. So why do we expect them to come together at an international level and all of a sudden turn it on when they haven't been doing it? And I know Herc will be saying, Pulisic, yes, most definitely, excellent season for Milan. But Kenny as well, good for Juventus. Tim Weah played well, but he's not playing that position. But outside of that, you've got the likes of Gio Reyna, not in the Borussia Dortmund starting 11. So
I think the biggest problem they have is that they don't tailor the way they play to the opposition. You know, for some reason today, and I think the majority of the blame has to be with the manager, because he's encouraging players to play out the back who might not be the best at playing out the back, but it's the old, if it goes wrong, I'll take the blame. Now, at the end of the day, it's about competing and winning games. So you have to tailor what you do to the opposition. And I don't think Berhalter's doing that. All the teams that the boys were talking about earlier who were successful in World Cups and everything else, they weren't going to the World Cup to try and prove that they were all silky Pelés and all these fantastic players. They went there to win a game. And the way they won the game was because they were tight and they gave everything and they were organised and the tactics were right and they didn't give much away. There was none of this expectation of playing like Brazil of 1970, where it seems today the fans think they should be doing that, the manager seemingly thinks they should be doing that. And I think half the problem is today, your modern player doesn't understand how good he is or how bad he is, and they expect to play like that. The players are half the problem, because if they're told to play the ball long, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, who are we? Are we chopped liver? Why are we playing it long? Because we're better than that. So you've got a manager who wants to play a certain way, who doesn't understand that if he plays that way against a team as good as Colombia, you're going to get battered 5. That's the first thing. But again, I'm going to guess, because I don't know, I think he's up against players who don't want to play the ball long, who want to pass it out the back, who get this snobbery about world football, and we should be doing this and we should be doing that. When actually, you know what you should do? Do whatever it takes to maybe not win the game, but be competitive. I've got a question.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Marion Frank is with us. You've got a question, Steve?
I've got a question, right?
Yes?
Am I the only person that's thinking on the TST thing?
Right, yes. This is obviously the competition that's going on at the moment. Just finishing up.
So the winning goal, the guy on the same team with different coloured jersey on.
Well, that was the goalkeeper who was up.
Oh, all right.
Because they take.
So was it only 2v? Was it 2v1?
Yeah, because they take off They take players off every 3 minutes.
Yeah, when they get to target score.
And then you get to the target score.
I was trying to figure out why has he got a different.
There we go.
2v1 from 7v7.
No, that was the ref. Stevie, that was the ref. He helped Danny.
He had enough. He had dinner reservations. That was it. Speaking of dinner reservations, Mario, look at him. Looking very suave today.
So it puts about 15 years on him, though.
You can say he looks old.
I thought it was his dad.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Stevie.
Are you getting married or what?
No, I'm not getting married. You know what is happening? It's just I'm raised well by my mom and now my 2 sisters. I just showed me my brother. Sometimes you gotta turn up like this and sometimes like that.
I see. I like it.
Were you at church before this?
Mix it up. I like it.
Hey, you look great, Mario.
No, you look very smart, but it's just.
Thank you, Ali.
Well, listen to his answer. He says sometimes you've got to mix it up a little bit.
I think you're shining and glistening.
You're
You look
Italian
great.
today. You're all hands
look
everywhere.
great, Mario.
I'm doing this.
Everything
I'm doing
is
this,
impossible.
There you go.
I can do it all.
It's arguing with Sebi. It got me going.
You got really frustrated.
The both of you took the hump big time.
Well, it's because he wasn't answering my question.
I know, but see, what people may not see off camera when they go off to Seb and Herc, right?
His face.
It's your face and then throwing yourself back in the seat.
Look, just answer my... No, don't go on with your own question. It's not Football America's now. Answer my questions. Anyway, lovely. Stevie, no player in the England squad can open up defences like Trent, and he's also the best set-piece taker in England. Do you still believe he shouldn't start? Aren't we doing opponents' defence a favour leaving him on the bench?
Well, the first thing is, I didn't say he shouldn't start. I just said he won't.
Right.
And
So
the reason
should he
he
start?
won't, well, I think it depends on what happens in the first game. I don't think he won't start the first game because Southgate will not be taking chances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to put Trent, you can't play him at right back, right? But I think if you were to start the Euros by playing Trent...
Apparently he will start. This is what I'm hearing in my ear now.
In the middle of the park is a gamble.
He's going to have Declan Rice and Trent in the middle.
Who's telling you that?
Reports I'm hearing in my ear.
From
the UK media.
from Liverpool FC Supporters Club. Yeah. Would you want a wee bet?
No, why do I care?
Why are you betting?
Well, because Trent won't start the first game. He won't.
Well, we're hearing
And if he
reports
does
that
start, he should start in the middle of the park.
Okay.
Where he can do exactly what Paul Lindo's saying,
Yep.
because he can pick
Paul
out
getting a
passes.
shout out.
All right, Paul.
All right, Paul.
So it depends what happens after the first game. If you need to go and win a game,
Yep.
then you're going to have to gamble.
We're hearing he will be starting then.
Who are you hearing from?
The Daily Telegraph.
Daily Telegraph. Oh, yeah, they're always
Reports.
So, yeah, he can open defences, but he won't start.
Mario, we talked about this in the show, didn't we? Who on the Dutch team would you be excited to see play at the Euros?
I told you, I said Frimpong. We talked about
Yeah.
Simons, but Frimpong is for me, I would love to see. Why? Because last big tournament, he had to wait and see if he was going to get an opportunity. And I think his chances are closer now. So I think Frimpong, if this gets the opportunity playing in front of Dumfries, could be exciting for Holland.
Our Spurs producer wants me to ask, is Van der Ven going to start, Mario?
Van der Ven, you know what the problem is now? We have, look, Van der Ven, he came on today with for Ake. Ake is the chance that, to substitute him. That is the situation. And Blind for me, great season, but I don't know if you play a guy, if they know now, put speed against him, and that will cause problems for us. That is a question. So Van der Ven, he has the speed, but he's kind of new in the national team. So it will be a big question if they start him straight away, or is he growing into the tournament and gets his opportunities.
I like this next question. I imagine when growing up, you all thought you were the greatest players. Who is the first player that made it clear watching or playing with them that you were at least second best? Frank, did you ever come up against anyone who you thought was second best?
No, never. Of course not.
No,
I would have never been world champion if I thought I wasn't the best. No,
Did you
I
win
always
the
thought
World
I
Cup?
was the best.
Wow!
Yes, yeah, something like that. No, but you know what? I always thought I was the best to push me to the limit. I knew that they were a better player, for sure, and many of players have been better than me. But I pushed myself to the limit, to the edge, to make sure that I was giving 100% because I knew that I had some weaknesses. But and I know that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank had an interview with Gary Neville, and they were, and I think you sent it to me, where he said Frank Lampard always thought that he was the best. He maybe wasn't the best, but he is at the beginning of Chelsea, and he did well with Chelsea. That's exactly true. But yeah, I played with Marcel Desailly. I played with Mario Melchiot. I played with Laurent Blanc as well, and so many others who had different talent that I had. I was good at some point, and I wasn't the best. But I would say overall, the guy that I played with that I was the most impressed was Marcel Desailly. Yeah. The Rock was really impressive.
Mario, when you were growing up to play for Ajax as a teenager, you must have stood out. You must have been the best player in that group. When did you realise or come up against someone that was better than you?
like in the youth team, right? You don't always think that you are the best, but you know what the thing is that you make sure that you have the best spirit and fighting spirit and belief. I think that is what you have as a young boy. I don't want to say that I was the ultimate star in my youth coming up into the first team, but I definitely had one thing, and that was the belief and the determination to make it. And then when you come to the first team, what did I had when I came to Ajax, the guys that I grew up, look, on my wall, I had enough stars, like Bergkamp pictures and stuff like that. But then coming into the first team, I think Ronald de Boer, you know the two brothers de Boer, I'm sure you guys are familiar with them too. I had Ronald in front of me. Ronald was one of the key things when I came through. I was a 19-year-old kid and I had Ronald in front of me, and Ronald helped me with a lot of things. And one of the key things, it was the day when we could be champion. I played against Koeman's brother and Ronald de Boer. I gave me the ball and I tried to put step overs to go by him. It was Erwin Koeman, and he said to me, "Why are you doing that? He cannot run with you. Just knock the ball past him, cross the ball, and we score and we become champion." I did it 10 minutes later. He looked at me, he said, "Now we're going to be champions." And we won, we became champions of Holland. So Ronald de Boer had a big effect on my career.
What about you, Ali?
Yeah, so as a kid, as the question presents the case, that you believe you're absolutely completely better than everybody else,
Yes.
right? And then we played a national tournament in Venezuela, me representing my state, the capital, Caracas, and then Juan Arango was from the state of Aragua, which is about an hour and a half from the capital. And he was as dominant then as he was when...
How old were you then?
We must have been about 12 or 13 years old.
Okay.
Man, he was, even back then, he was special.
Right.
But obviously, you lose track of who these people are. You just know that you just played against a guy who's special.
Sure.
We won the game, the championship in penalties, but he was the best player by far on the field. But the actual realization that, yeah, maybe I'm not quite to the level I need to be. I was a hold-up player, right? But smaller in size, so a lot of it was about my body positioning. And we were playing against Brazil in Brazil, and at the time I believe it was Luisao and Juan that played center back for Brazil. So two very big guys, long legs. And as I get in sort of my position to hold the ball up, and that's all that you can do when you're playing against Brazil and you're Venezuela, hold the ball up, draw a foul, we move forward. I see this leg that just kind of comes over my shoulder. And when, as I'm trying to receive the ball, and this leg just comes over my shoulder, wins the ball, and I'm like, well, where did that come from? See, I don't have that, and I can't compete with that. And it was the same feeling when playing against Uruguay, and then the center back pairing were Diego Lugano and Godin. Godin when he was very young, and Lugano was sort of the leader of that back line. And if you get past one, the other one is cutting you down.